I'm in the military as a flight officer, '07 soldier, and I'm not sure how things will pair out with China, Taiwan, Trump. Any predictions? Just curious. I maintain that it seems likely that in our lifetimes, China will attempt to take Taiwan by military force. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know why, but it seems likely. And what happens after that is the big question mark. What's the difference between Hong Kong and Taiwan? Yes, I'm that dumb. You're my favorite person. I love a person who could be like, I don't know. Can you just tell? Like, I think you have a good attribute, honestly, not kidding. That's a good attribute to have in life. Here's China, here's Taiwan, here's Hong Kong. Hong Kong used to be owned by the British. They peacefully returned it to China in '97, but it had its own rules. It was part of what they called one country, two systems. So in Hong Kong, they drive on a different side of the road. They have their own separate judicial system that's underneath Chinese authority. They have all sorts of things. And it was a center for finance and commerce in all of the greater Asia area. Ever since they regained control of it, China has slowly but steadily been more and more encroaching on Hong Kong and getting more of a complete immersion of it into the greater China system, where it's no longer a separate thing, but part of the larger just China in general, just a city in China. There was a bunch of protests in Hong Kong. For a while, it was a big thing discussed around the worldwide. Ended up not stopping things or slowing things down, and Hong Kong has continued to become more and more integrated into China. Now Hong Kong is essentially a Chinese city. I mean, it has some separate stuff, but Taiwan was never part of, communist China. There was a civil war in China between the communists and the royalists. Communists won. They got all of China. The royalists fled to this island. Chiang Kai-shek, nationalists, sorry. And the nationalists made a new government in Taiwan. They claimed all of this. They said they owned all this. China said they owned all this. You could say this is West Taiwan at the time. Communists were considering making the final push, taking this over. America, among others, but America especially, was the influence that stopped that. America threatening to get involved. America putting their aircraft carriers and support behind Taiwan. So over time, this nationalist government of Taiwan changed pretty dramatically to become possibly the world's, let's say top 5, one of the world's top thriving democracies in terms of like income per capita, in terms of like free and fair elections, in terms of like general quality of life growth. I mean, Taiwan has done pretty well. They consider themselves a separate nation. Now, China, this entire time, has never considered Taiwan a separate nation, has always considered Taiwan to be part of China, even though they don't have any government over it and Taiwan's been running itself. And that's where the rub comes through. Because China is such an important and influential and powerful nation that does trade with everybody, nobody else can really recognize Taiwan as a nation. So they don't. Almost nobody on earth, no country on earth recognizes Taiwan. It's like 5 countries and they're all tiny. Nobody does. However, that's in words. But in actions, a lot of countries do recognize Taiwan. They have separate diplomats for them. They have meetings with China and with Taiwan. They have trade with Taiwan, and they have operated under this weird limbo system where it's like, we all agree with you, China, that Taiwan's part of you as long as you don't do anything about it. That's sort of what it's been. So all the countries of the world, not all the countries, but especially America, but a lot of European countries as well, have gone with this one China policy where it's one China, it's all yours, but don't do anything. Don't change. Just keep this status quo. That's the difference. Hong Kong is over and done with. That's pretty much fully Chinese now. Taiwan is a fully independent nation in terms of boots on the ground reality and actions, but China has never wavered in declaring it part of them, has done many military drills, has had deep sea cablers test, and I think successfully cut internet lines. You know, they can drag anchors across the floor, and there's a lot of things they can do, and they've definitely kept Taiwan on alert, on threat. Oh, and the last part, I mean, I have a lot of videos on this you probably watch, but the last part is that Taiwan, through a nice quirk of history and fate, became incredibly good at creating microchips. Incredibly good. The world's best. They make the smallest nanometer microchips that are used in the GPUs that you might have, like your NVIDIA GPUs that are used for AI or gaming or computers. They make the chips that are used in everything. They make the best. They have the highest output. They have the smallest size. South Korea is a distant second, and then like Intel. And because those are like the digital oil, the digital gold, the digital powerhouse of the modern economy, Taiwan is very, very important. And that's why so many countries, they don't say it, but they're in practice kind of backing up Taiwan. If this falls into China's hands, that changes the entire global supply chain for chips. Is Intel still ass? Yes, absolutely. Why does Taiwan look like a Mogus? That's a great question. That's an insightful question. And that is because from China's POV, which is where this map was drawn, they're sus. It's almost like to the world, Taiwan is inelectrical. And we don't know if they're messing around in there or actually fixing the wires. Does that make sense? Intel was almost caught up in fab tech. That is a stretch to say. Almost caught up is such an interesting way to phrase it. Yeah, I'm almost dating Anne Hathaway. You're a human being. You're on the same earth as Anne Hathaway. She might even be single, but I don't know that it's almost happening. What's wrong with Intel? Intel was a really, really dominant, leading foundry and chip designer, one of the world's great technology companies. And then they slowly but surely found there was more money to be made by not innovating and instead locking down all of their, distribution, basically switching from engineering-led corporation and management to more business-led. And they just sort of sat on their monopoly and kept falling further and further behind technologically, but printing more and more money and getting fatter and fatter margins. And then they woke up, 20 years later and realized they fucking sucked. The Boeing approach. Yeah, that's the simple way of putting it. They went woke is the short answer. The short answer is the CEO of Intel dyed his hair blue. He changed his pronouns to more/profit. And then go woke, go broke. You know what they say. Actually, it's funny. Yeah, it's true. In reality, he was like, the new CEO of Intel was like leading a prayer on Twitter. It was like Leviticus 13:14, may God bless this company and may our chip yields be better. That shit was crazy, dude. Thoughts on TSMC moving to America? That's a very interesting question. I don't know. I don't have an answer. What I'll tell you is that there's been a big push to get Taiwan Semiconductor to move some of their skill set and foundries and factories to America. And it creates this weird problem, right? Where if Arizona gets good enough, then the need to defend Taiwan is limited by other countries. Outside of the goodness of their hearts and the pro-democracy angle of it, they don't benefit financially. So Taiwan knows this, but also knows that they have to deal with, first it was subsidy. I mean, the reason Taiwan did it was because Joe Biden flashed a huge check in front of their face. The CHIPS Act. That's why they did it initially. And now that because they're afraid of tariffs. So if they build it in America, they can, it's carrot or it's stick, but that's part of it. Now, to be clear though, the latest and greatest, smallest chips still have not been made in America. The technology is still withheld in Taiwan, but yeah, they've had foundry yields. I think NVIDIA is rolling out some design and manufacturing centers in Texas, and they're going to coordinate with TSMC to make a full GPU supply chain in America. That was recently announced. So shit's happening on that front. I can't tell you that I know where it's going to go, but yeah, I never hear good news. I'm going to try and deliver some good news too. With a lot of industrial projects, especially in America, what I've noticed over time is they're very big on the headline and then very limited on the follow through. This may sound stupid. What does China actually gain from invading Taiwan? From their POV, it's always been theirs. Like if the America Civil War happened and the South retreated to Florida or Hawaii and we never finished the job, eventually we're going to finish the job is the idea. My understanding is that there's a real, I don't know the right word for it. It's like a golden idol. It's like the ultimate prize. It's like a real accomplishment for any CCP president who accomplishes that task. And I think Xi wants to be the guy to do it. He wants to be that guy. He wants that. We did it. Unified. The Civil War finally over. And there's the benefit of getting the chips as well. But China is building up its own domestic chip industry. Didn't Taiwan so they could brick their machines? Yeah. If there was a military invasion of Taiwan, whether it's through Taiwan doing it or America doing it, the chip factories would not survive. So I don't think that's a big part of it. China wants to reunify for much deeper, longer lasting historical reasons than like any economic reason. The machines are not from Taiwan, they're from ASML. Yeah, the lithography machines are from ASML, a Dutch company. However, ASML does not have the knowledge or the expertise or the foundry experience that Taiwan has. Like you couldn't just buy the ASML things and do what they do. Taiwan is the only ones that can do it. I could? Yeah, you guys probably could, but you're A-Shock chatters. Just the reason I support Taiwan is because if you look into Taiwan, I mean, I did a whole video on this and I spoke with Taiwanese people and we had our researcher, give me information and talk to her friends in Taiwan. And then just the general sense is, first of all, they would prefer not to be. Like you ask these people and they would prefer not to. Overwhelmingly, like the vote was that they would prefer not to be. So that's just self-determination. That's part of it. And the second part is like their country has done really well. China has done well for itself economically. Taiwan has done even better on a per capita basis. They've done incredibly well. They've done economically well, democracy well. They have a good schooling system. They have high performing schooling system with a lower like suicide rate than like South Korea and China, which is where there's more pressure. They've done a lot of things right. I'm not saying there's no problems there. I'm just saying they've done a lot of things right. So the idea that they would want to be subsumed is, not good. If California wanted to see from the U.S., should they be allowed to? It's a little different. Because it's like if a different government had a revolution in America right now and conquered all of it but California. They never owned it. The CCP never owned Taiwan. They never had it. They were the revolutionaries. It's a little different than what you said in your example. Would it be like Puerto Rico? Not, again, you guys are looking at it backwards. It's like if there was a revolution in Texas and they conquered all of America except for Hawaii because they couldn't get out there. And Hawaii is still the old America. The revolution in Texas never had Hawaii. They never took it. It was never theirs. They claim to it because they think they run the whole country. But that's why it's different. It's not the same as a succession. Explain it in Clancyville terms. It's kind of like if you had a really thriving town that Dan Clancy wanted to trade with, and you thought it would be beneficial for both of you, but then over time you realized that Dan Clancy had single-handedly replaced all the key figures of your government and then did a coup and then subsumed it into his larger Clancyville metropolis that grows larger every month, every day, every week, every year. Dan Sixth.